Good morning and welcome to Unholy Mole. I have Godless Engineer with me today. We're going to be talking to him a little bit, and I also got Staggers and Jags. If you'd like to introduce yourself, guys.
Stags, you can go first.
Oh, I'm Staggers and Jags. You guys, if you're watching Mole's channel, you probably already know me, but if you don't, just go subscribe. Subscribe to my channel. Watch my videos. Share my videos.
Yeah. Show yourself all you like, brother. Show yourself. GE.
Oh, and I'm Godless Engineer. I'm a redneck from the South. I got a YouTube channel and stuff, and I talk about not believing in God and how the many idiots there are out there that talk about how you should. Oh, also flat Earth stuff. There's also a good bit of that flat Earth stuff.
We love that flat Earth stuff. That's my bread and butter, man. I love that flat Earth stuff. It gets me.
Yeah, I found a flurfer video last night that I think I wanna do, but it's so disjointed and like he throws so much. It's one of the God/flat Earth shit, so this one ought to be fun. And he just keeps like he keeps throwing the same facts at you over and over and over again, and never makes a point. Like, oh, Jesus did this, Jesus did that. I'm like, you're just pretty much all right. So I invited John here. I like to interview fellow atheists, make connections, and meet people that are like-minded. And today, I just wanted to interview and ask you a few questions. So I guess the first question would be: have you always been an atheist, or were you raised in a religious household?
Yeah, I was raised in a religious household. It was I first started out as a Catholic. And then after my mom divorced my dad and we had to leave the church, we became a different denomination of Christianity. And, I bounced around like Southern Baptist kind of, at least Southern Baptist-like churches. I even went non-denominational kind of a church. And then I know my mom settled on a Lutheran church. Of course, now I'm an atheist, and before I was kind of still non-denominational Christian. But it was one day. Now, I remember it very specifically because I was playing for a church softball team, and in the parking lot, one of my friends was like, "Look, if you don't believe the Bible completely as fact, then you're not a real Christian." And of course, now I know that as like a no true Scotsman fallacy, but at the time, like, I didn't know about the arguments for or against God's existence. For me, it had always been just, that's what I know. Because, being raised Catholic, I was also in a Catholic private school. So not only did we have like religious classes every day, but we also had to go to mass twice a week. There was like a private mass just for the school, and then the Sunday mass that we also had to go to. So it had always just been ingrained into me, like from a young age, that yes, God exists, and that's just how reality works. So I never really thought about questioning that. And once somebody, a fellow Christian, got me to question it, like on my own, I was led down to the path to atheism because I started questioning everything that I thought that I knew was true. I just started questioning everything, and so it was just very interesting to be questioned about it and have it naturally just lead me away from religion.
That makes a lot of sense. What made you decide to start making YouTube videos?
Well, first off, I started off on Facebook. What started my Facebook page was that I was coming into this new worldview, and I was very passionate about it, and I still am. I was passionate about it, and I was espousing like what I thought. And I remember, again, very specifically, there was a post on this. It was like a internet kind of church thing. It was a Facebook page that was a church, and so they asked like a belief in God is a, and then I finished it with a crutch for the weak-minded. And then I had like 2 family members unfriend me on Facebook because they were tired of my shit. And I had, people come to me like, look, you got to tone down on that stuff, okay? Because you're going to lose the entire family if you don't. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to change my opinion on things. So I stopped really talking on my Facebook personal profile, I made a Facebook page called Godless Engineer because at that time I had just graduated with my master's in software engineering. And so I was like, well, I don't want to just be atheist, X, atheist something, atheist engineer or whatever. Like I didn't want to be that. So I picked Godless and then Engineer because those are kind of the two core tenets of what I really identified as at the time. Because, I mean, I was this newly, formed atheist, and I was an engineer that I was extremely proud of being. And so I just kind of merged the two ideas. And so I created my page, Godless Engineer, and well, at the time, you could interact with other pages and stuff as your Facebook page. And so I spent most of my time like as the page. I would switch to that identity and I would go and I would comment on other pages. And that's kind of really how I built my following. Like I would be a smart ass on wherever. And so, I would I figured out how to, make memes and make images and whatnot. And I just would post, my thoughts and everything. And eventually that got me up to, I want to say like 80,000 page followers. And I think somewhere a little bit before that, I started making videos. And I felt like it was like just a next step, like in my activism or me, being an atheist wanting to get my opinions out there, was I started to make videos because people were always like, well, it's easy to say that when you're behind a Facebook page and, you're hiding your identity and all this other stuff. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just make a video. I don't give a fuck, So it was, I guess it was more like it's the next step for me, but also to show that I'm not afraid to show my face and be an atheist.
Right. And who were some of? First of all, I should say, when did you start? When did you start your YouTube channel? How long have you had your channel?
Let's see. My channel, I think I've had it since 2013. I think, I mean, I started my Facebook page in 2012, like November 2012, and then it was sometime after that on into 2013 when I actually made the YouTube channel for me, and I didn't immediately start posting things. I know I started. Let's see, I didn't immediately start posting things. I posted like videos that I really liked from other sources. Like I know one of the first videos on my channel was the scene from the History of the World where Mel Brooks, Mel Brooks is Abraham, and he like drops the first the first tablet out of 3 tablets, and he's giving us these 10 commandments. Yeah. And so I posted that up. I know at one time I posted Carl Sagan's evolution cartoon up, where he has like the evolution from single celled all the way up to human. I posted that up. And then I know my channel actually got into trouble in the early days when I wasn't exactly making response videos, or at least the best response videos I could, because there was this preacher from Happy Valley Church up in Tennessee. He made the rounds on the internet after I posted the video because he had this really racist rant about how he won't marry an interracial couple. And so like it was like a good 20-minute like sermon, just completely racist through and through. And so like I believe it was like Raw Story picked up on it. I think it had about 60,000 views or something like that. But when the church actually had it like taken down, and I got a copyright strike for it. And so like I couldn't really upload videos more than 15 minutes long or stream on the page at all for like 6 months. And after that 6 months was up, I started producing, videos more consistently. I had a few themes going, like I used to have Fallacy Fridays, where I had this nice little setting where I would pick a video and then I would point out the logical fallacies contained within it. Now I kind of do that ad hoc, just in every video I do. I try to point out how something's fallacious.
Yeah.
I might point out the fallacy name that they're using and explain why it's a fallacy. But I used to have like a dedicated like Friday I would post one of those videos. And so I would also do a lot of mythicism stuff because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think that Jesus actually existed on Earth. Like, I think there's enough evidence to suggest that he was a literary concoction by a few groups of Jews in the first century.
Mhm.
So, you know, I posted a lot of videos on that. And then after all of that kind of ran a little bit, I just started producing, you know, response videos. So, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And who do you have a question, Stags?
No, I was just saying that was a good answer, man.
I was going to ask, who were some of the who are some of the people earlier in your atheism who influenced your arguments, or what were some of the early arguments that really caught your attention?
Well, let's see. Some of the early arguments. I guess one of the big ones would be Pascal's wager, and of course, no true Scotsman arguments. I guess those would be the ones that really caught my eye. You know, the people that said, "Oh, I was once atheist, but now I'm a Christian." Like those are the, I mean, I looked at people that used to be atheists and became a Christian, and none of their stories ever sound compelling enough. It's like, I was an atheist and I beat my wife, I kicked a hole in the wall, and I pissed on my dog. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's not indicative of anybody.
Yeah, that doesn't really make you an atheist. That just means you're an asshole.
Yeah, and a lot of times when people recognize in themselves bad behavior and they have an aha moment and go, I've got to change my life, a lot of times that comes with other changes as well. You know what I mean? It doesn't make it true.
Right.
It just means they change the outlook.
I've noticed that a lot of people, I don't mind sharing this. Everybody knows that I'm a recovered heroin addict. I've been clean. I'll have 5 years, April 16th.
Oh, and, awesome. Congratulations.
And like, I've noticed how, like, when people get in bad situations, they tend to want something to comfort them. And I think a lot of people like that might not be, they think they're atheists, or like they're going through a phase, and then like something bad happens to them and they're like, oh shit, I need something to hold on to. God save me from this. No, motherfucker, you saved yourself from this. I mean, you just finally got some self-realization, and you're using God as a crutch. That's the way I look at it. I mean, everybody goes through tough times. I mean, so right. It is what it is.
Ironically, that's what a lot of Christians claim about atheists, is that the only reason why they're atheists is because like something bad happened to them, and so they gave up God, and like so they're mad at God, so they chose not to believe in him anymore because some bad shit happened. And like it really is the complete opposite situation, because most of the time when people, you know, experience a loss of a loved one, I mean, it really varies on how they react, and it varies in, you know, how closely they look at, you know, evidence for God, or what questions they ask of themselves. So I would say more times than not, it would draw them closer to God rather than away from God.
Right. And who are some of the YouTubers that influenced you early on?
I think let's see. I know, of course, the Amazing Atheist. I mean, I found him. Not the first one. I don't know who was the first one I found, but I mean, I guess all of the old school atheists, anti-theists like Dusty Smith, T.J. Kirk,
Thunderfoot,
Logic, Thunderfoot. I didn't really start getting into the whole YouTube atheist community, like even when I had started my channel, because I just saw YouTube as not really a community, but just a place where videos existed. I had no concept of the idea of like building a community there. And so, you know, I would just watch offhand videos, but once I started getting into it, like I watched Amazing Atheist regularly, Dusty Smith, Logic, and then Armored Skeptic when he came onto the scene. You know, I guess just those kinds of Bionic Dance.
Yeah, I really dig her.
Yeah.
Has atheism affected your life in any negative ways? I mean, when you first became an atheist, or has it since?
Yeah, I would. I mean, that like not atheism. Obviously, atheism hasn't really negatively.
Or I should say your vocalization about atheism. Maybe there would be a
Right.
better,
or
better way
rather
to put it.
people's reactions to it is really what is.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's not atheism per se that they had a problem with me, but I mean, it's kind of like my new worldview in general, because I've never had anything directly against like the LGBT community.
Right.
Even when I was a Christian, I didn't see anything wrong with it, other than the fact that like my stepfather would make fun of me, about being gay or something like that. And so, I mean, I always taught that it was like a bad thing to be gay, but I was never like, oh yeah, that guy's gay, I should totally like kick him in the nuts or something. Yeah, it never really occurred to me that like, oh, they're bad people, kind of. But I mean, once I came into my new worldview, I started, really being supportive of the LGBT community and showing people that there's nothing really wrong with it. And I think I get that from my dad, at least a little bit, because I remember when I was young, we were over at one of his friends' house down in Birmingham, and it was an interracial couple whose house we were at. And my dad asked me, "Is there anything wrong with that? Do you have a problem with them being an interracial couple?" And I was like, "Well, no, I don't really care. It doesn't bother me at all."
Right.
And so I kind of had the same mentality when it came to like homosexuals and other people in the LGBT community. It didn't bother me at all. Like I didn't find it like weird or anything that I needed to hate. I generally try not to hate something or someone without a good reason.
Right.
And
Right.
I never had a good reason. But once I started, being in support of the LGBT community, I had a lot of pushback from people. I remember at work, they were having this discussion. I didn't start this discussion, but they were having this discussion over gay Boy Scout leaders. And like I remember I was there and I was supporting the LGBT community, trying to show them that there's nothing wrong with homosexuals. I mean, they're just humans like everybody else. And then like for no reason at all, like this guy just looked at me and he was like, "I don't want no gay Boy Scout heading up my son." And I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna walk away from this particular conversation.
I've always been like, I mean, like I kind of have always been on the underdog side, regardless of I mean, I've never been. I was raised in a house. My mom was born in 1940 in World War II Germany, so my mom hated racism of any kind or prejudice of any kind. So I grew up in a household that you don't judge people by anything other than the merit of their being. So but I also like you said, you were raised Catholic. I didn't go to Catholic school because we weren't that well off, but I was forced to go to catechism class, which is almost worse. So I had to go to regular school, and then on my off time I had to go to catechism class. But my parents never went to church, so I never understood why the hell they made me. Why they made me? I don't know, because they're trying to save my soul or whatnot. But yeah, I've never really seen the like. Who's your this kind of leads into the next question. Who are some of the people you like to debunk the most? Like when it comes to like Christians, do you have any favorite Christians you like to debunk?
Well, I mean, I guess not really until recently. I mean, everybody goes for the big people like Dr. Lane, William Lane Craig, and Lee Strobel, Ray Comfort. Of course, there's always, like Joshua Feuerstein. I know back when I was first making videos, like he was the more popular guy to kind of shit on.
He makes it easy.
Huh?
I said he makes it very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as I've gone through, like there have been like little streams of people that I tackle, like Street Preacher Joe. Recently, that was pretty interesting. I like responding to him, even though everybody else like kind of hates him.
I think he's kind of hilarious, to be honest with you. I kind of like Stevie Anderson. I kind of like. I guess you could call it hate watching him because he's such a bigoted asshole. So like, I don't know. I guess I hate watching him. I guess you could call it hate watching him because I can't stand the guy, but I also can't stop watching his videos.
When you can't take him seriously, it's a clown.
Yeah. I mean, like Kent Hovind's a clown. I mean, like I don't think he means anything. I mean, he says some like very offhand racist shit and very offhand like homophobic shit, but Stevie Anderson's not. He don't joke about it at all. I mean, he's straightforward. Fucking. I swear that guy is a closet gay because I mean, I have never met anybody that hates homosexuals so much in my entire life. Oh, I've never met him, but I've never seen anybody that's so hateful.
You know, he actually sleeps in a completely different like room than his wife.
Wow, that's strange. I wonder how they came up with 10 kids or whatever they had then. What do they just like push the beds together like Mary Tyler Moore and Dick Van Dyke every now and then? Or
well, I don't know. I can only guess that like after the last kid was born, the doctor was like, "Now listen, if you have another kid, her uterus is just going to explode at that point." Okay?
Right.
So I suggest condoms or something. And of course, Stephen Anderson, being the fundamentalist Baptist that he is, it's like, there's not going to be any condoms or anything in my house like that. We'll just sleep separate, not fuck.
Yeah. Or what seems to make a lot of sense now that you tell me that he doesn't sleep with his wife, methinks thou dost protest too much type of thing going on about the gays. You know what I mean? Maybe he's got a little bit of a boner that he doesn't like.
I mean, he did send me my first hater though, so that I appreciated that. Like this kid was in my comments and I'm like, well, fucking debate me, dude. If you got something to say, debate me. And after that, he totally left me alone. He had not another word to say. So I was kind of happy about that. My first hater.
Well, I noticed you found a D Marble. He's one of my favorite people to watch.
Oh, D Marble. Yeah. Have you seen him? Flat or G?
Yeah,
he's a flat earther.
He's the African American gentleman with the well-spoken guy that says, until you walk around off that way and come back around this way.
Oh,
motherfucker.
Forcibly suck my nuts.
All right. Yeah.
No, yeah, I love that guy. I have plans to do more videos on him. But I love him a lot just because of his whole suck my nuts deal. Like it's every freaking video. He even did a Flat Earth song where he sings. He goes, "Suck my dick." And it's like, really?
That's funny.
I don't hate his approach though, because I take sort of the same approach when I debunk videos. I haven't uploaded in a long time, but you know, I don't do a bunch of research. I just look at stupid shit and go, that's freaking stupid. And I call him names and stuff. So he's pretty much taking the same approach. So I can't hate him for that. He's just an idiot.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I remember watching your videos and I didn't recall you going, you know, just suck my nuts. I mean, forcibly suck my nuts. Y'all believe this? You're a stupid fucking suck my nuts.
I try to have at least a little bit of decorum. You know,
I mean, the guy amazed me because as much as I talk about dick on my channel, like I do not talk about dick like he does. He really wants somebody to forcibly suck his nuts. I don't know why.
But it has to be a glober, though. I mean, I don't think a flat earther will do. I think it has to be someone that believes that the world has a circumference. So
my nuts got a circumference.
I like KC in the comments here in the chat. She said maybe he just needs some head.
That's possible. That is absolutely possible. So what direction do you see your channel going in? Do you plan on? I mean, I really like your new content. I've seen that you had Telltale on the other day, and because you're like me. I mean, I know about general Christianity because, you know, I was raised around it, but I don't know a lot about Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses. So do you see yourself branching off and trying to do more like Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Islam stuff?
Well, yeah, possibly. I mean, I guess I try to attack general Christianity as kind of like a catch-all. But, I mean, I know that a lot of people that I respond to are either fundamentalist and crazy as shit, or or you know, just some version of creationist or something like that. I like for my channel, like I've got 3 basic tenets, I guess, for my channel, and that's politics, atheism, and science. And I don't do it like, I don't try to politicize my channel too much, but like I try to get in there where like politics meets like the separation of church and state, because you know, that's an important issue for atheists in general, and so I try to do videos on that some, but I'm gonna try to stick with those 3 areas. And like with the flat Earth stuff, I'm still going to be doing those because I'm very much a proponent of being like very steadfast in responding to the stupid like assertions that they put out there. And it's true that like every video is pretty much the same on flat earthers, but I just still think that you need to be persistent in refuting them and having like a lot of videos up that say the exact same thing. Like eventually they're either just going to stop watching because they don't want to learn new information, or, you know, it'll get people to actually start actually researching it instead of just doing, oh, look at the sunset. See, the sun's moving. That means that we live in a geocentric fucking universe solar system, motherfucker.
Yeah, you gotta love some of them flat earth arguments. They're fucking so ridiculous. Like, I mean, you can't you can't use logic when it comes to science. Just because the Earth, I mean, that's like it'd be like a microorganism on a fucking beach ball. You're not gonna see the curve if you're fucking that tiny. I mean, don't they get about that?
I don't get it. Yeah, what curve do they expect to see? You're standing at a point and you're looking out, and you can make a circle with your vision everywhere you can see, and it's gonna make a fucking flat circle around you. Like, what do you expect?
Well, I know Delano TV, I think you called him D Marble. He, you know, he has a video that I'm planning on doing something with, and he takes basically a giant inflatable ball, like not giant. I mean, he can hold it in his hand, but he pours water on the top of it and watches the water fall off of it. And it's like, see? It don't stick. It don't curve, and it's just like.
Oh, I think I've seen that video.
Unfortunately, the same.
That's one of the ones where he's like, "Suck my nuts. See, water don't stick to no ball, man. See, it just falls right out." And you talk about that one, where he's just
on
about that'd be a good response video.
I like you see this one a lot. They'll take a wet ball and toss it up in the air and spin it, and all the water flies off of it. And they're like, "See." It's like, yeah, you got it, dude. You nailed it. No scientist ever probably tried that.
It's like they don't understand that that our atmosphere and everything inside of it is in an enclosed space, and outside of that is space. So it's a totally different. You know, I mean, they don't understand scale. They don't understand a lot of things, but I mean, I think scale is the big one. They have problems with scale is the main one.
Well, the biggest mindfuck for me is the fact that they deny that gravity exists. Like them rejecting gravity kind of allows their whole worldview to exist. If you really think about it, because, you know, with gravity, if you're in a 3-dimensional space, of course, you're going to have like a sphere or a spherical object just by the way that gravity works.
Right.
And so by rejecting gravity, it opens up that worldview to being like a flat surface. Because if you factor in, like if you have a flat earther that also believes in gravity, then it would be really tough for them to rationalize like a flat earth with how gravity works.
Yeah, what is it I mean, a lot of them think that the earth's like a flat disc, and it's going upward at so many, that's what keeps us planted, or some of them think that anyway.
Well, I've heard of that. I've heard of that particular theory, but there's also people out there that think that density is just the thing that gives things weight. And they don't realize that density is completely different than weight, because density is like the amount of like matter in an object, whereas like weight is an actual physical measurement that is derived from that force of gravity between two objects of different masses.
Right. And one argument I've heard which is almost, it's silly because it's the stupidest argument, but it's almost the one that makes the most sense if you try to put yourself in their brain. And I've heard one guy just say, well, there's up and there's down.
But yeah, they in
things
that
go
particular
down.
yeah, they fail to realize that like up and down are totally like subjective to like your position, like anywhere. Like even in space, you could be, you know, you could be one way and everything looks, you know, up, down, makes sense, but then your other person is over there totally flipped on their end.
Right.
And it's reversed to you. So I mean, they just totally don't get the whole idea of subjectivity.
No, not at all. They're totally lost when it comes to that. So flat Earth and basic Christianity. I mean, obviously, I watch your channel all the time, so that's them are your main tenets.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, my main tenets for the channel are politics, atheism, and science, and it's where those three intermingle at some point. Like, you know, because those three things often, you know, come into contact with each other. And atheism doesn't even have to be part of it. Like politics and science regularly clash. And I've done a few of those before. But, you know, as far as like Christianity goes and religion in general, I'm planning on, you know, doing more on Mormonism. I know that once we're done with the Bible, KC and I are going to be going through the Mormon Bible or the
Book of Mormon. That'd be cool.
Oh, hey, let me ask you a real quick question on that. Do you have a copy of the Doctrines and Covenants?
Well, no, I think right now, like I've been reading just on the Skeptics Annotated Mormon Book of Mormon. But I don't have the copy of the covenant, or what is it called?
Doctrines and Covenants.
Doctrines and Covenants. Yeah, I don't have a copy of that. Yeah.
They don't just hand that out to people, but I do have a copy here. Maybe I could send it to you.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that they didn't just hand that out. So you can't just buy like the Doctrine and Covenants?
You might be able to, but you won't just get it handed to you from missionaries. They kind of they wait till after you've already committed some of your money and dunked your head underwater to start telling you that kind of crap.
Yeah, you know, it's really weird because like that sounds exactly like mystery religions, you know? Mystery religions often keep like their most like their craziest teachings. They hold that out until you're already in the religion, so that you'll already believe it when you read them. I mean, if you read them as like an outsider, then you're definitely not going to believe that fucking religion.
Right. Yeah, and that's how the Mormons do the exact same thing. If they came into your house, if the missionaries came into your house and started telling you about Kolob and how many wives you're going to have in heaven, you probably wouldn't go get baptized. And they will baptize you today too if you want. They will baptize you at the next available baptism. They will sign you right up. They're like Navy recruiters.
Some of the believe it or not, my fiance is a devout Pentecostal, and I know you're probably going to ask how the hell that works, but her dad's a pastor, and they've tried to get me to go to church, and I'm just honest and respectful to them. And I'm not really sure that the mother's a big fan of me, but the dad, I mean, as far as like I've heard you say it yourself before that there's a lot of good Christians. I mean, their beliefs may be retarded, but as far as most Christians go, my father-in-law is one of the most kind, loving men you'll ever meet in your life. I mean, like he really wants to help people. It's too bad he's a fundamentalist and believes the world's 6,000 years old. So, I mean, but me and my old lady, we don't mix. I mean, religion don't come up. She knows I'm not going to go to church. It's kind of like, you remember the Waltons and John didn't go to church and Livy went every Sunday, and, you know, she always tried to get John to go. It's kind of that thing. So she don't try to get me to go. We have an understanding, you know, so, I mean, it works out. So, I mean, we've been together for almost 4 years. So, I mean, I at times, a few times she's gotten a little angry with me because I've gotten a little condescending when I just try to discuss religion, because I get passionate about it, and I'm like, but look at this, you know, I'm like, how can you believe this, you know? And so I mean, I've learned to just steer clear of them conversations with her. We agree to disagree, I guess, is the best way to put it. Who are some of the people you said you were a mythicist? I've been really into Richard Carrier a lot. I'm waiting on a copy of the Historicity of Jesus or whatnot. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, I've seen some lectures on it, but the book explains it more. And I really do you like Richard Carrier?
Oh yeah, Richard Carrier. I mean, he's a pretty good friend. You know, I've met him several times. And,
Oh
I mean,
wow.
yeah, he's a really great guy. But I mean, more so on his research. His research is very solid as well. Yeah, Casey,
it's pretty thorough.
Casey got me the historicity of Jesus.
Yeah, that's the book I'm waiting for. Coming for the.
Well, yeah, no, sorry, this is her copy. I have an audiobook version.
Yeah,
I've seen the copy.
I've seen the condensed, he does like speaking tours and he'll like talk about his books. So I've seen like the condensed version of that. And like I said, someone the other day was I was arguing with a Christian online last night, and he's like, "Go to the internet." And I'm like, "Fuck the internet, man." I'm like, "Give me a peer-reviewed book to look at, and then we can talk." And like, we kept asking him, like, prove God without using the Bible, without using Scripture, and he kept dodging and kept dodging. I mean, he was trying to gallop on us. I mean, for like 45 minutes straight, he just kept. Well, I'm giving you evidence. I'm like, no, you're not fucking giving us evidence. You keep giving us excuses that are, that's all there are is excuses. There's no evidence involved. And I just asked him, like, have you read the Richard Carrier book? I was trying to.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain that. Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say I wanted to start with just the history of him. Like, start with the epistles of Paul. I mean, it doesn't mention anything in there about Jesus being like, a real being, or like Paul doesn't talk about Jesus being a real being in that sense. You can tell it's just a metaphor, or what do they call it? A parable maybe.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, Paul, he speaks of Jesus like, he sees him physically on earth, but anytime he talks about Jesus, it's always a spiritual vision.
Right.
And also,
Oh, I was just agreeing. Sorry.
Okay. But yeah, it's always like a vision or something like that when he talks about like Jesus. But he also says, he stresses this a few times in his epistles, that he got his information from no man on earth, and that it only came from scriptures and from visions. So, or revelation is what he calls them. And so with the fact that he stresses that he got it from scriptures and visions, that means that he was having hallucinations and he was reading the scriptures. So, I mean, a lot of people like to throw it in the face of mythicists and just atheists in general, that, Paul was convinced to stop persecuting Christians and become a Christian. And so that proves that Jesus existed. When in reality, it just seems like he was reading like the supposed prophecies about Jesus, and then started hallucinating about Jesus. Like, that's what it seems like to me. And so I think that is way more probable than Jesus actually existing, dying, rising, and coming back and appearing to people. They always want to throw the Pauline Creed in people's faces, but I mean, a creed like that can develop without the person actually existing. I mean, we can, that's happened several times. Like, if you think about, I know one of the examples that Richard Carrier gives in his book is the Roswell incident with the UFOs and stuff. And he takes you through the progression on how just like in 30 years, it went from, the legit thing that happened was like, I think a weather balloon or something went down in Roswell.
It's like sticks. It was like sticks and like some paper or something they found.
Yeah.
And that's all.
And then it full blown like UFOs, they're visiting and the government's covering it up and shit. Like, that's the progression of it. And so when you hear people say like, well, this couldn't have been developed without a person actually existing or whatnot, when, you have other examples of that. Like, we have other records of like legendary things being developed about like real people. So, they really bank on that whole idea that, people couldn't have just made this up. And then they give a whole bunch of other reasons why things that happen prove that Jesus existed, like people dying for Jesus, or Paul writing about Jesus and all this other stuff,
Right.
when they don't actually consider the fact that there are multiple reasons why people would die for their belief in Jesus, or there's multiple reasons for all of these other things. Like, they don't consider the other reasons. It's just Jesus existed.
Right. I like how he talks about. Oh, go ahead, Stax. You want to say something?
I was just going to say that a good example of how legends can change and mutate over time, evolve, if you will, is the story of Robin Hood. I mean, there may or may not have been a man that the story is based on. Probably not. And if there was, he wouldn't recognize the stories that we tell about him now.
Yeah.
Because if you go back and listen to some of the old children's rhymes, I can't remember really what they're called, but they're all numbered. They're called child's rhymes or something like that, and they're all about Robin Hood. He didn't rob from the rich and give to the poor. He robbed from you and gave to his friends.
Well, they might have been poor.
Yeah,
it might have been halfway true. No,
he robbed merchants and people like. I mean, and the stories change as you want him to be more of a hero. You leave out some of the worst things he did, and you add more good things that he did.
Right. And I like how they think about how quickly something can get blown out of proportion in this day and age with all the technology we have. Think about 2,000 years ago. They hear a story, then they tell that story to someone. I mean, that fucking shit's going to get changed horribly within. One guy goes and travels 50 miles to another town, tells another guy, and that guy travel. I mean, that shit's going to play the telephone game. See how that gets.
And the King James was compiled. The King James was compiled 400 years ago about events that took place 4 times that long ago.
Yeah,
and it was translated from 3 different languages.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we have other Bibles out there, like where people were working to translate them, and you could tell, you could see how they had notes on how they were going to change it and everything like that. You could see the changes happening, when they were copying, and so I mean, we know that these changes happen. The whole virgin birth thing, that wasn't originally in Christianity. In Christianity, originally, Jesus was inhabited by the Messiah figure when he was baptized, and that's what they originally celebrated. They didn't celebrate the virgin birth. It wasn't until later, maybe about 50 or 100 years after the inception of Christianity, that they started working on this virgin birth, because they were trying to convert pagans into it. And the pagans were used to gods coming down and boning the 14-year-olds and getting them pregnant. That's what they were used to.
Right. And there were numerous savior gods back then. So, I mean, each little tribe had their own little savior god. I mean, Richard Carrier goes into that a lot. And I like how he shows how the Gospels are just wraparounds of older Old Testament stories, like how Jesus is almost like Elijah and Moses, just in a different context. Like, this the same story, just retold with a new guy. The first century Jews, they had this concept of what the Messiah figure would be, and you see the Messiah figure was supposed to be was supposed to be just another prophet of God, right? But he's more special. And so if he's just like the prophet of God, then, or if he is a prophet of God, then he had to have done the things that the other prophets did. So with Elijah and Elijah, I mean, you had the production of food from very little, that's what the fish and the loaves of bread and whatnot. Whereas Elijah, I think, had milk or something, that he had an abundance produced from very little. You have things like that. There's, I know Elijah I can't remember which one did this, but they resurrected somebody. And as you know, in the book of John, he resurrects Lazarus. And that itself is kind of interesting, because in the book of John, it has Jesus resurrecting Lazarus, but then in the other books, I think it's either Matthew or Luke, it mentions Lazarus, but it's a completely different Lazarus than the one that's in the book of John. Right. Yeah. You can if you just read the guy. I mean, anybody. My advice for anybody that is on the fence would be to read the Bible cover to cover. And that's probably a good place to start. If you're in doubt, read the Bible cover to cover, and you'll see all the inconsistencies and all the contradictions. And I mean, for a book that's supposed to be perfect, man, there sure is a lot of fucking mistakes and contradictions in it, isn't there?
Oh yes, there's a plethora of them. I mean, that's what KC and I are doing. We're actually reading the Bible cover to cover. Well, basically, I mean, we have a daily Bible.
Yeah, I've been watching it.
Yeah, we have that daily Bible, and it breaks it up by days, and it kind of organizes it a little bit better. But I mean, basically, like repetition, like there's a lot of repetition in the Bible. I mean, you basically, I remember there was one story like with I think it was Abraham's sons or something. Like Abraham had this one thing happen to him concerning this one ruler or whatnot. Like basically he pawned his wife Sarah off on the ruler so that he wouldn't die. And then like some years later, his son came through and did the exact same fucking thing. And like it's just all copy paste like on certain occasions. But even in Genesis, there's contradictory things. Like there's two different versions of the creation story.
Yeah. And they're only like one chapter. They're only a chapter apart too, aren't they? Like,
oh yeah, one's in chapter 1, one's in chapter 2.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Who are you? Who have you been listening, or like who has been influencing you recently? I mean, since you've grown as an atheist, I mean, who are you really into now? Like, as far as like,
Well, see, when I first started out as an atheist, I was really into like the Four Horsemen, more so on the Dawkins and Harris and Hitchens, not so much on Dennett. But those were the big ones. Here recently, though, I mean, it's no one person. I would say it's more just me researching on my own and figuring things out like on my own through either through university like websites that have like peer reviewed information on it, or just just other people in the community that have been, producing content, like David Fitzgerald talking about the mythicism thing. He has really great books on Jesus mythicism. And I think right now he's got 4 books on mythicism, because his first one was the 10 lies about, or Nailed, talking about 10 lies of Christianity. And then he's got the 3 books, which I actually did the cover art for those books. He's got the 3 books on Jesus mything in action. Yeah.
Mything in action. I like that.
All the good books. Here's the first one, Jesus mything in action. And then, so that's the Mormon book. Here's the second one. And here's the Nailed. And then here's the final one for the.
Are these self-published books, or are they books that I would be able to find?
Oh yeah, you can go onto Amazon. You can find them. They're really good.
David Fitzgerald, you said?
Casey says, I got these directly from David, and they're all signed.
Yeah,
Not everybody's lucky as you, Casey.
And then he's also got a Mormon's book, which is really interesting. I pulled some information from that too.
So I've always got a kick out of Casey's name. Is that JC's sister?
Well, no. Online, her moniker is.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was just giving her shit about Casey, Jesus Christ, JC.
I'm real.
Yeah, I know you are real. Jesus might have been, but I highly doubt that too myself. I'm of the same side that I don't think Jesus was real man either. I think he was a made up figure for someone to follow. It kind of goes back to that where Jesus, or where Rich Carey talks about how the Jews were, that when the temple was destroyed, that the Jews were looking for a new way to, the Christians were already a sect that was against the temple. So like Jesus took place of the temple almost. You know what I'm talking about, that story where, like, how is it Mark where it's all supposed to be all it's just all parables, parable after parable, like the fig tree and all that. That's Mark, right? If I remember right.
Well, yeah, possibly. I know Mark is the earliest one. I know that John Dominic Crossan actually has a book out called The Power of Parable, and he argues that the entire New Testament, like the Gospels are entirely parables, like even the other ones, because like Matthew and Luke. Well, Matthew's derived off of Mark. Luke is derived off of both Matthew and Mark. So, and then, Gospel of John is just sort of out from left field. We're
So do you think that they oh shit, I forgot how I was going to word that. Stags, you got anything to add? Like, remember what I was going to say, or how I was going to word what I wanted to say?
I was just arguing in chat over whether or not the moon spins. which is a stupid argument to even have. Yeah, from the frame, objectively, if you look at the whole universe as a whole, sure, the moon is spinning kind of, but no, it's not actually spinning. It's tidally locked with the earth, and it's doing exactly what you would expect a body that isn't spinning to do. So I don't have anything to add because I wasn't paying very much attention right then. I'm sorry. Okay. I'll ask a question. What are your favorite kinds of videos to make besides the comment videos? Because those look like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, the comment videos. Those are really fun. Generally, so how I work and how I'm able to produce the amount of content that I'm able to do is that every Monday and Friday I do a live stream on my Facebook page. And part of that live stream is doing a comments at the very beginning and then responding to a video at the end. And so the comments portion is often very, very hilarious. I try to pick the best ones that I can for those to like read off. And I never really considered like, how I sound like as a deep Southern redneck to be like hilarious to a lot of people, but obviously a lot of people find that to be pretty hilarious, and it's the perfect accent for a lot of these comments. But the kind of content that I really like doing are the more scientific based content. Like that's why I really like the flat earth videos, and why there are some times where I just have a run where I'm just doing flat earth stuff or just crazy conspiracy theory things. Those seem to be the most fun. Of course, I mean, I also love doing the traditional atheist kind of content. Because I mean, those too can be pretty ridiculous. I think it's what determines it for me is exactly how ridiculous are the claims in the video, and are they putting some kind of new spin on it? And like for instance, with the Delano TV, he thinks that there's water above the firmament of the earth. And like he used commercials to prove it. And it's just like, what are you even doing?
TV commercials?
Huh?
Like television commercials?
Yeah. Well, like he used one Simpsons thing. He used a Reebok commercial, and then he used like a Heineken or it was an alcohol commercial where a guy was like being shot up out of the earth and like broke through the firmament or whatnot. And it was, I don't know. It was just really weird.
That is absolutely ridiculous. I'm convinced it was on a Heineken commercial. I'm convinced.
I want to be a part. I want to be a part of these Illuminati meetings where they're like, "Okay, we for sure, definitely absolutely cannot let anybody know that the Earth is a globe, but we really got to drop hints on TV."
I always get that's always my first question is like, why would we go through the trouble? First of all, I don't think it would be possible to keep that kind of thing under wraps. I mean, like you see how relations are between countries as it is, but to keep something that big under fucking wraps, and to top it off, what would be the point? What are they gaining by saying the Earth is a globe when it's really flat? What are they gaining at all?
Because they're hiding the extra land from us. That's what Jake thinks. There's more land out there to find.
You talking about flat Earth asshole Jake?
Oh yeah, he doesn't call himself that anymore.
What's his new name? Just Jake the Flat Earther?
Jake the asshole. He doesn't call himself a flat earther, but he's still a flat earther.
Oh, Good for him.
Yeah, you know, I tried to get him onto like a stream or on just us having a conversation, but it was like, go ahead and keep riding my balls, and like I'm like, oh okay, because like I made one video about him that I was able to split up into two to put on YouTube. And so I'm not really riding his coattails like at all.
For people that don't believe in a fucking globe, they sure like to talk about balls a lot, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
One of my best friends on here on the internet is actually friends with Jake in real life.
So, oh, really?
Yeah, get in touch with Sleek the Geek on Twitter, and he might be able to talk to him in person and get him to come on your show.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, I've actually got to do a moving background for Sleek. He asked me to do one for him like a week ago or something like that. I haven't had a chance to get around to doing it, but no, yeah, I would love to have him on. But I mean, like, does he actually believe in the flat Earth, or is he just putting on a show?
I don't know, because he's got to this point now where he recognizes that the AE map, it does not comport with reality. But he still thinks the Earth is flat. But he's debunked the AE map.
Yeah.
So he debunked his own argument?
Well, I don't know where he's at. He's like so close to the line. I feel like he's just going to melt. His mind's just going to melt, and he's not going to know what to do. He's going to go complete freaking conspiracy tard before he finally realizes that he's been a fool all these years.
Yeah. Well, I remember one of the last videos that I actually watched of his was he was claiming that Eminem got cloned, and so now that's why he's acting different.
Yeah. That's from like the Vigilant Christian shit. That guy is so obsessed with the Illuminati, man. Oh my God, the Vigilant Christian is too much.
Yeah. You know, I was actually supposed to do a live stream on the Vigilant Christians channel, but he stood me up. So
that's not surprising. That's another thing I was going to mention about you is where do you get the patience to deal with some of these tards on streams and stuff? I mean, I have to give you credit, man. You have the patience of a saint, and I use that in a joking way, but you do really have a lot of patience. Like, I've seen some of your streams with Pastor Greg? Is it Greg Locke? You know him personally, right? And you guys did have an okay relationship, but now he's been kind of shitty to you, it seems. I mean, I don't know. I've seen some comments he made about you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you think he's a genuinely nice guy, or do you think he's a kind of is he an asshole, or?
Well, no, I mean, I think that he can be asshole-ish on like the internet, but I think that he's really just sort of like, he's really, I guess he highlights that kind of part of himself almost, you know? I mean, he really puts it out there that he's like kind of this unashamed Christian that will say these provocative things. And, you know, a lot of Christian pastors will try to do that now. But, I mean, he does do it in spectacular fashion. And I guess I haven't heard him really say any disparaging remarks against me. I know that
disparaging. I didn't see he didn't. You guys seemed friendly in that one. I mean, you met. I seen that video where you guys were in person together, and I just didn't. He didn't strike me as like. I mean, that seemed disingenuous. After he didn't seem to be honest about it, I guess maybe is the best way to put it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just his disingenuity. If that's even a word. If that's even a word, it is now.
Yeah, which I know actually Locke, he gets shit from Christians too. Like I know here recently, you know, he's talked about how he's been divorced for a while. And, you know, he's kind of gone through that. And, you know, Stevie Anderson, actually, he posted on his channel about how.
Oh, I've seen that.
Huh?
Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I seen the video pop up. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Well, yeah, basically, Stephen Anderson thinks that Greg Locke should step down from being a pastor because he doesn't feel like a pastor can be divorced and still be a pastor. So, I mean, he gets shit from Christians too. And the difference, though, is that I try not to personally attack him. I try to attack like the stupid shit that he says.
Yeah. I try to go that way. I don't want to disparage anybody. I mean, because of who they are. I mean, I'd rather attack their ideas because, I mean, I don't like being made fun of for who I am. I mean, if you want to attack my ideas, that's fine. That, you know, be my guest, but, you know, don't make fun of me as a person. I just don't. The thing I get a kick out of it with Christians is like how not only are they think they're in a fight with atheists, but they're fighting their own kind. Like there's so many different sects, and every one of them. I mean, like I'd have to say Stevie Anderson's the worst. That guy hates everybody. Like he's always hating on somebody. That guy, I bet he probably hates himself. That's why he's so hateful. He probably looks in the mirror. He's like, I just hate you. Why don't you just die? Die already. But I can't see how they like, I mean, if they were so I mean, how can they all be so convinced that their sect is right? I mean, where do they you know, what makes them think they're right? Is there anywhere in the Bible, I can't remember, where is divorce, I mean, like such a bad thing? I mean, that you can't I can't remember where that's
very, very bad. Yeah, it's very bad. In fact, the law says you can't get a divorce unless your wife cheats on you.
Right. And if you remarry after getting a divorce, then you're cheating because you got married that one time, and that one time kind of sticks.
So they have to be dead before you can do anything else, pretty much. They have to be dead. Then you're free and clear, right?
I'm not sure if, I mean, coming from the mouth of Jesus, the way he said it was, yeah, once you're married forever.
Yeah, well, I think
in heaven, and you can't, you know, you have, if you want to fuck another woman, you have to marry her too.
Well, yeah, but that's why the Jews, I mean, they were pretty liberal on the polygamy.
Polygamy.
Yeah.
Polyamorous, however you want to put it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that the Bible is good with the poly on the guy's side, not so much on the woman's side.
Yeah, surprise.
Right, and that's why I specify you can only get a divorce if the wife cheats. You don't get a divorce if the man cheats.
Oh yeah, and then the wife dies for cheating, of course. So
right.
That
I mean, getting stoned in that sense doesn't sound too fun, does it? I have fist-sized rocks thrown at me until I'm dead. Not my idea of a good time. Now, do you think Christians are seriously worried about our soul, or do you think they are gleefully inside thinking, they're going to burn in hell for all of eternity? Do you think it might be like half and half, or?
Well, I think that there are some times when they can be pretty vindictive about that, being like, you're going to burn in hell and I'm not. And I think that there are sometimes they can be like that. I know that like the street preachers out there being like, I'm showing you love by telling you about this. And they will oftentimes compare it to like, well, you know, if you're driving off a cliff, you know, me telling you you're driving off a cliff isn't doing harm to you. It's trying to save you. And that's really how they see it. They see it as, you know, you're driving off a cliff into hell or whatever, and they're trying to stop you from doing that. But I think that where a lot of people have come to is like they don't want to force their belief upon you. Like they still think that you should believe, like regardless of whether or not you actually believe in it, they want you to believe because, you know, they don't want you to go to hell. But at the same time, I don't know. To answer your question, I think that they do seriously think that we're gonna go to hell, but a lot of people have managed to curtail that and not force it on people.
Okay, so I mean, do you think that they're being genuine when they really are worried about our soul? As for the most part,
I think it's kind of like sometimes I feel like it's more of an empty kind of like concern. Like they're concerned about it, but I think that it's more rooted in the whole idea that the Bible pushes of, you know, everybody, you know, don't mingle with people of other faith. Don't, you know, they're wrong and they're going to be going to hell, so separate yourselves from them. And I mean, that's even, you know, promoted in a lot of other different versions of Christianity, like Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean, they will legit cut out anybody that's not a Mormon, you know, in their life. And it's because it threatens their faith. And so I think that it's kind of an empty concern, because at the same time, like, they don't know that hell exists, but they just choose to believe it. And so, like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean by empty concern?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I think so, because when you take it back to the metaphor of driving off a cliff, you know, I started thinking while you were talking, I was like, if I see somebody driving off a cliff and I'm telling them, hey, don't drive off that cliff, and they just are ignoring me, I might at a certain point go, fine, drive off the cliff. But then I thought about it a little bit more. No, absolutely not. I would take the wheel from them. If they tried to fight me from taking the wheel, I would try my best to render them unconscious and stop that car from going over that cliff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
right.
There's no, I don't care what they think at that point. I would stop them physically from going over the cliff.
But that goes
and they don't
back
try
to
that hard. You know what I mean? They're like, whatever, drive off the cliff. I don't give a shit.
That goes back to the whole free will thing, though. I mean, you can't they don't think you can force Jesus' love on anybody. I mean, so you have to choose him on your own. I think that might go back to that just a little bit, you know.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense. I mean, it's also, there's so much crap that people cherry pick. Each Christian has a different idea in their brain of what's the right thing to do when trying to convert people.
Yeah.
So who are some I've been watching, like, or so who are some of the Christians you've been watching lately that, like, oh, I got to debunk this shit. This is pretty good.
Well, it's nobody in particular. Like, generally, how I find videos is I'll just type into, like, YouTube, and I'll say atheism, or atheism is false, or evolution is a lie. I've really been looking into like this one channel called Genesis Apologetics. Generally, I mean, they're trying to debunk, like, Big Bang and evolution and all that, like, you know, answers in Genesis, but you know, they sometimes will produce these, like, 5-minute videos that are excerpts from larger videos. And the thing is with them is that I've got to do a little bit of research and actually plan it out.
Right.
And go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Just like saying, I was like, yeah. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So, I mean, there's that. I've also kind of been looking more into, like, Frank Turek and again, at Lee Strobel a little bit. I know I've got William Lane Craig. His videos come up in my feed too. But I try to find, like, just general people that are, you know, putting up their ideas on God and religion. And that's why I just put into the search bar, you know, those particular terms, because I want to hear from, like, actual people. Because it's like, I feel like it's easy to take, like, William Lane Craig or Lee Strobel or some of these other people and take them and, like, you know, debunk them or state how they're wrong or whatnot. But, you know, finding actual real people that believe it and are putting these videos up, I don't know, to me, it's a little bit more powerful, not because they're just not. To me, it's more about the fact that people actually still believe these things and are actively believing it, because there's this whole idea, at least in the atheist community, that, like, oh, we've debunked that several times over. There's no need to rehash things. But, you know, going back to what I said at the start of the stream, that we just have to be consistent in debunking and refuting these things, because people are still, like, actively believing in it. Like with the flat Earth, leaving flat Earth alone definitely did not, like, make it go away. Like, if anything, it's increased in its popularity. And so I think that we have to keep on, like, being consistent and refuting people that, like, you know, espouse these really bad ideas.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And let me just add something to that real quick. When you take somebody like William Lane Craig or a Kent Hovind or a Pat Robertson, you know, these people, it's hard to tell if they're telling the truth or not. They're making a lot of money, and they're obviously, you know, you could watch videos of their ideas being refuted to their face, and then they turn around a month later and make a video saying the same stuff. You know, Ray Comfort is famous for that. But when you find an independent YouTuber that's not making money off of YouTube that is espousing these ideas, then you know for sure you have a pretty good idea, at least at that point, that they actually do believe it. And it carries a little bit more weight when you know, it strikes right to the idea.
Yeah.
Is that
I get what you're saying.
Is that kind of?
Oh yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I found a channel recently. Have you ever heard of Wretched? You ever seen Wretched, the YouTube channel Wretched?
No.
It's got some pretty funny videos in there. I did a debunk video on a Wretched video, like I think it was last week maybe. And they're just there's this he shows this it's this guy, and he's always pushing a book. I don't know why Christians always have books to sell. Fuck me, and they're the book writingest motherfuckers I've ever seen, man. But and he's got this pastor he always shows, and like I want to do a debunk video on it, but I almost feel bad because this pastor, like he's like he almost is in tears when he's like doing his sermons. Like I don't know if it's genuine or if he's just being disingenuous, but he's like, I want you to have Jesus' love because this church is dying. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, I just don't know if he's being disingenuous or, I mean, but it's still funny. I mean, I want to still kind of debunk it, but I feel bad because like I said, he almost seems so genuine, but that makes me feel like he's being disingenuous. You know, do you know what I'm saying? And it's hard to find, like, how do you find like normal videos? Like if you look up atheists, like atheists are false, like it's usually videos from people we watch, like they all pop up and they're just debunked videos. I mean, I mean, it must be a lot you go through to find. Do you have people send you videos, or I mean, do you just?
Oh yeah. Actually, recently I had somebody that sent me a Street Preacher Joe video and asked me like, "Hey, you should refute this," and it's like, oh, what was it? Atheists condone slavery, and then the subtitle is "Atheists can't read."
That's funny. We're condoners of slavery. That's funny. I've never had a slave in my life. I was just saying, yeah, atheists are big condoners of slavery, although none of us have ever had a slave in our life.
Yeah, I know.
I seen a video the other day. I can't remember what channel it was on, about how Christians are against slavery, and it's in the Bible. I'm like what the fuck Bible have you been reading? And I'm like, that must be a different Bible than I've seen, because I'm pretty sure that they don't mind atheism, or I mean, they don't mind slavery all that much in the Bible.
Well, yeah. The weird thing about that, though, is that generally, I haven't seen the video that you're talking about, obviously, but generally, when they start talking about how the Bible is against slavery, they're talking about two different things, and they're using an equivocation fallacy in order to support their statement, because there's two different things in the Bible that are branded as slavery, and one is indentured servitude, and another is actual slavery. And they try to paint indentured servitude as slavery, and it's pretty obvious in the Bible that those two things are totally different.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it also becomes very apparent to any thinking person that's read the Bible that the Bible is really just, especially the Old Testament, was written for the Jews. It's a story about how God will help the Jews overcome, because they're allowed to take slaves from their enemies, but then when Egypt's holding them as slaves, then it's let my people go.
Right.
You know, so it's about them coming out on top.
Right.
Well, and actually,
oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say about the whole let my people go thing, that, you know, Moses actually only wanted like a week off, and then the Jews were just going to go back to being slaves, because he wanted to take the Jews out into the desert, like walk 3 days out into the desert, do their Sabbath celebration, and then walk 3 days back. They were going to come back and be slaves, but at some point, you know, the Pharaoh was just like, fuck it, y'all just leave.
So would they just want that 3 days to go out and do their like Yom Kippur or whatever, like the blood atonement to like ease their sins or whatever, and then
right.
Is that was originally the plan?
Well, yeah, because you know, that's the only thing that Moses was wanting them to do. But of course, you know, it ended up with him being all like, let my people go, and Pharaoh was just like, get the fuck out of here. And then, of course, as the Jews were leaving, they like stole all of the silver and gold, like plates and pots and shit from the Egyptians.
Oh, they needed retribution, or what do they call it? I guess retribution works, but that's not the word I'm looking for.
Reparations.
Yeah, reparations. That's the word I'm looking for. They needed reparations. I found a channel called Three Mormons, and they're like college age kids, and they were doing it. I watched a video last night about they were talking about how great the Old Testament is, and how the prophets of the old days they were a little different than the prophets of today. But yeah, they were fucking different because back then people believed in magic and shit, and people were doing miraculous things. But now, of course, the prophets can't do that because we obviously know magic isn't real. You're not gonna perform any miracles. I just got a kick out of that. And they were talking about the Abraham Isaac story, and how they were it's funny that Christians don't even know their own well, they're Mormons. I mean, still just a sect of Christianity, though. I mean, it's still under the same umbrella. But they didn't even know their own story. They were talking about how they brought the lamb with them to sacrifice, and that is absolutely not how it went. I mean, it wasn't as he was going to kill him, then the ram showed up in the bush and blah 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 blah, and he killed the ram. Right? I just think it's funny how they'll sit and talk about their. I mean, it's almost like they're debunking themselves, and they're so la-di-da about the religion. I mean, they're so materialistic. Have you ever watched any of their videos?
Oh yeah,
they debunk themselves. It's almost.
Yeah, I've got a couple of videos against them on my channel. They're an interesting bunch, and I swear, the young African American kid that's on that channel. I don't know if you guys know his name, but his name's Kwaku. And I really have to stop myself from being like, all right, Kawasaki, listen here.
Kwaku is his name?
Yeah, his name's Kwaku.
Well, they had some guy on that video last night, and just how blasphemous they were to their own religion. I was almost like, what the really? I mean, should I even do a debunk video on this? You guys are blaspheming your own shit. You're doing it yourself.
Oh, I would. I definitely would if I were you.
Yeah.
But I just want to point out my absolute favorite Old Testament story is when Moses is on the road to Egypt and God gets all pissed off at him for no reason at all. And so, thinking quickly on her feet, Moses' wife immediately cuts the tip of her son's dick off and throws the to Moses. And then God's like, oh, that'll do. God's happy with the foreskin being thrown at the foot of Jesus, not Jesus, but Moses.
That seems totally logical, God's mad at me, so I'm going to cut my kid's fucking foreskin off and throw it at somebody.
One of my favorite parts is when the Pharaoh's priests turn their sticks into snakes.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
But I think right after that, Moses' snake eats the other snake for whatever fucking reason.
Yeah,
and it just becomes a really big stick.
Yeah.
And on the story of foreskins, when we're kids, we all hear the story of David and Goliath. Cool story, right? Yeah. But after he cuts Goliath's head off, he then collects 200 Philistine foreskins as a gift to the king.
What kind of gift is that?
I think it was Abraham and his sons. They were traveling through the Middle East at one point, and they tried to trade, or this one town wanted their sister or something like that. So they're like, okay, well, you can have our sister if you all circumcise yourselves. And so basically what happened was they all circumcised themselves, and then after they got their circumcisions or whatnot, and they were all wiped out from feeling all that pain, they went through and killed every motherfucker in that town after they cut the tips of their dicks off, just so that they could take all the women and young girls for themselves, as well as other possessions and whatnot. And after that, God was like, oh, fuck. Well, listen, I'll protect your ass as you move through here. It wasn't like, oh, shit, y'all shouldn't have done that because that's immoral as fuck. It's, oh, well, now you've angered other people, so I have to protect you. And he ends up destroying all these other towns as they're walking through. And it's like, what the fuck is this book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God's up there like, oh, good move, Abe. That was awesome. You totally got their foreskins and killed them and got to keep your sister and their sisters. Right on, dude. That's a win.
Yeah, I love the swing from Old Testament to New Testament. I mean, how different it really is. Like, I mean, I want to say the Old Testament's probably mostly fiction, but I think it's like almost like a fictionalized history almost. I'm sure that some of the stories are semi-true. I'm sure there's a kernel of truth. I mean, like they were just talking about like different shit their tribes went through and blah 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 blah. I mean, I'm sure it is a history, a partial history of the Jews, but I think a lot of it's fictionalized, glamorized.
In the time of the New Testament compared to the time of the Old Testament, there was a little bit more travel going on. News spread a little bit more, so it would have been a lot harder to get away with in the New Testament a story like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That didn't happen. We just went there. We were there last year.
Right, it's still there.
Yeah,
they're still raping angels.
Well, I mean,
or that city never existed, or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, even in the New Testament, you have several different like stories. Because like earlier, I pointed out how the Gospel of John has the story of Lazarus being resurrected by Jesus, and the other books they don't have that, or they mention a totally different Lazarus. That's still somewhat connected to like the Gospel of John Lazarus, and then you have all these different stories because like, okay, so the feeding of the 5,000 or whatnot, where he
bread and loaves.
Yeah, there's two different versions of that's worked into the same gospel, and that's because the gospel author not only copied from, I believe, Matthew. I think it was in Luke that maybe both of them appeared, but the gospel author copied from the other gospel, like that story, and then added another story of him producing like food to feed his people. Again, it was a different story, but it was just a different telling of that same story. So, like, you have, while story or information did travel a little bit faster, they still have all these different problems.
Right. Like I said, I think it's like, I think that it's just like like the New Testament, I think there might be some true-ish stories in there, but I think it's just an elaboration of like just older stories. And just like I said, with the Jews, and there might be some history in there. But I mean, they're writing down a myth to carry on their traditions. It isn't supposed to be a straight historical, I mean, it's supposed to, I think, imbue in them like the history of their tribes and the culture, and we got to keep this alive kind of thing. And so I think they elaborate a lot on the stories to make it sound cooler, because, if you just say, oh yeah, we went to this tribe, they went to that tribe, it's kind of a boring story. So, I think they fictionalize a lot, or did.
Yeah. Yeah, right now in the Bible where Casey and I are at, it's very boring because we're kind of at the laws and the numbering of the Jews, kind of like what Hitler did.
Yeah, I seen that video yesterday. That was great. That was funny. You're going to burn, Casey. You're going to burn.
But yeah, there's several portions of it that are like that, where they're doing really boring things and they're repeating things like 12 different times because they got the 12 different tribes and all that other stuff. But like the story of Moses, like him leading the people out of Egypt and everything like that, that's through and through a parable, and you can tell. So there's definitely a lot of fabrication in the Old Testament. And I think even recently they figured out that Solomon's mines, like where he supposedly kept all of his gold and whatnot, they never actually existed. So there's several things in it that are definitely fabricated, and like the only things that seem to be historical are shit like, oh, there's a desert.
I'm just saying, like, they took historical figures and weaved them into like their fictional tale. I'm saying there's probably some real historical figures in there just weaved in.
Oh yeah, and then like Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, you have Nebuchadnezzar that was a real person, but he also appears in stories where there's no evidence of him having existed in that time, like in the story of David. there's no historical evidence that Nebuchadnezzar was around in that time, and it seems like he was around actually in a different time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't have details on that. That's just something I remember reading.
If I'm not mistaken, Herod's the same way. I mean, Herod was a real person, but I mean, does it match up with the time of Jesus's birth, or like, you know, like didn't Herod die like maybe 4 or 5 years before Jesus was supposedly even born? So, I mean, I don't know how that worked out.
Yeah, the only 2 gospels that deal with Jesus' birth are Matthew and Luke. And one of them, I think it's Matthew, who has him being born in Herod's time, which Herod died in like, I think 5 or 4 BC.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but then you have Luke, who has Jesus being born during the census that Quirinius had done, and that was about like 6 AD or something like that. Right. So I mean, there's like a good 10-year difference in the 2 different gospels.
Yeah, and there was, I mean, there was more than one Herod. I mean, also, I mean, but still, that doesn't change the fact. Yeah, like I said, I mean, they were trying to. When you're trying to build a story, you want to make it as good as possible. I mean, you're not gonna, you know. I mean, people aren't going to buy into a boring ass story. I mean, the Bible is boring in most parts, like I said, but I mean, a lot of it's pretty action packed and like, you know, I mean.
And these stories were written for Greeks. The New Testament was written in Greek for Greeks, so they had to compete with the myths that the Greeks already had. Well, we better make a virgin birth. We better have some resurrection going on. There's got to be miracles performed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember all the mythical figures that Jesus compared to. I mean, I know that there's like, you heard some on the internet, but I mean, I know that Osiris is one for sure, right? What's that female goddess that was nailed to the wall? I can't remember how to pronounce her name. You know, I've heard you say her name before. Huh?
Inanna?
Yeah, Inanna. Yeah. So I mean, like, you got to remember, I mean, like all of these religions were based within, you know, the Middle East. I mean, so they all were within traveling distance of each other. So therefore, I mean, that really makes sense that all the myths kind of tie together or borrow from each other. And, you know, I mean, what would didn't they say, like, weren't the Jews captive of the Assyrians for like 100 years or something like that? So they think that's how they might have borrowed some of the Tales of Gilgamesh and all that stuff, or borrowed from the Tales of Gilgamesh and all that.
Well, I mean, maybe. I'm not sure about the Syrians. I know that they spent like 400 years under the thumb of the Egyptians.
Yeah, I know that one, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe they weren't like. Maybe they might not have been like captives, but maybe they were like. You know how like they used to send emissaries from different kings' courts to each other to keep the peace.
Yeah.
I think maybe it was something like that. Like
all that stuff happened within like 100 miles of each other. I mean, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers meet is right there. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. They were all within a few days travel of each other. That's why I was saying how the myths interconnect. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the known world at that time to them. I mean, there was no other world. So.
No, yeah, and I mean, a lot of Christians will say that, you know, they didn't like the other cultures had no effect on, the other cultures had no effect at all on, you know, Christianity or the formation of Christianity or Judaism, but it's pretty obvious that they did. I really don't understand the people that say, you know, that they had no effect. It's pretty obvious they had an effect.
Yeah, I call bullshit on that as well. I mean, because I mean, it is very obvious. So you have anything you'd like to add, Stags? Oh, you must be doing something. But I don't know. Do you have anything you would like to say, John? Anything going on with you? I'm running out of stuff to say.
Well, you know, I really appreciate you watching my videos. I know that you and Stags are pretty avid watchers on my channel, so I really appreciate that. I guess my question to you would be like, what kind of content do you like seeing the most?
Like I like like I said, I mean, I'm pretty much I'm pretty much on the same page as you. I like the debunking of conspiracy theory type shit, atheism type stuff. I mean, I think the same thing kind of, we all fall under the same umbrella. A lot of I mean, I hate to use that word because that's so convoluted now. The whole skeptic word. I mean, that word's been ruined for us. But yeah, just the same kind of videos you've been making. I mean, they're and I really like the how you and Casey are going through the Bible. It's like a Cliff Notes for lazy people, so we can kind of like we should watch that and not have to reread it ourselves, you know. And there's also the added humor. I mean, that makes the Bible a lot better, you know. I mean, the commentary makes it so much better.
Yeah, on that particular set of stuff, what I try to do is I try to be like the stereotypical atheist that just doesn't know anything about the Bible or anything like that. So that's why every episode I start out by very horribly like reciting what we're going to be discussing that day and turning it into something that is completely not. And then KC is the rational one there. It's just like, no, that's not even close. That's not what we're doing today.
That's usually how relationships work anyway, isn't it, though? I mean, you know, you have to, the woman says, okay, I'm going to do this. Right? That's how our relationship works, too, so don't feel bad. She's the rational one and she's the Christian. That's the weird thing. I mean, but when it comes to everyday life stuff, she's much more rational than I am, I must admit. I mean, like, when it comes to, like, history and stuff like that, I might know a little bit more than she does about history. But when it comes to everyday stuff, my old lady is definitely the more rational one of the two.
Yeah, Casey has a really good head on her shoulders. She keeps me grounded.
Yeah, that's what I like about Heather too. I mean, like I said, she is a devout Christian, but I'm not going to fault her for that. Like I said, I don't hate Christians. I don't like their ideas, but I mean, can't help who you fall in love with. I mean, it's just the way it works out. We went to high school together. We're literally like the sinner and the saint. That's what I call us. I wanted to be our like marriage banner, but I don't think her parents would go for it. I think it'd be cool as shit, you know. And like, she already knows that I told her that, like, you know, if I die, I want a totally secular funeral. I don't want a prayer uttered. I don't want anything religious uttered at my funeral. Not a single religious word. I mean,
well, let me ask you this, Mole. Why do you care what the grieving do at your funeral?
I don't care, but I'm just saying I think it's silly. I mean, I don't want them to waste their breath. That's all.
I tell people all the time, when I die, they can do whatever they want. You know what I mean? If they want to have a big old prayer, that's none of my business. I'm dead. I don't give a crap.
Crucify my corpse for all I care, but I'm just saying. I mean, I would like to be in death as I was in life, is what I'm getting at. I mean, I don't pray, so I don't want, you know, I don't want it to be that kind of, you know, funerals are always so, I mean, I don't know why they have to make them so religious. I don't know if it's a comfort thing for people or you know, like, oh, your dad just died. Well, yeah, he's getting eaten by worms now. I guess that's a little harsh compared to, oh, he's in a better place now. No, he's in a fucking coffin, dude. Like, it's not really a better place. I mean, I'm sure it's uncomfortable as shit if you were alive anyway. So, but I
just want one of those little bells. Just give me one of those little bells. That's all I request.
George Washington was terrified of being buried alive. Did you know that? Like, they wanted to make sure he had explicit directions that to wait 3 days to bury him, and because he was afraid of being. I guess that was a big thing back in the old days, being buried alive. Thank goodness for modern science, eh? Even though
that's why they used to have a wake, is to make sure you were dead.
Oh, I guess that does bring me around to a topic. What do you think of? I mean, normal Christianity is bad enough as a whole, but what do you think of people that are in extremist sects that like let their children die of diabetes because they you know, they depend on God alone and faith healing? I mean, do you think that should be? I mean, I think that I myself think that should be talked about more. I seen so who was it that did a video the other day about was it was
Jeff
was
Holiday?
it no it was I think it was the genetically modified skeptic. Is that his name? Or
yeah,
is that his name? Yeah. I think he did a video the other day about the faith healing thing. I think that's That's a huge.
His complete and technical name is the genetically modified homosexual sparkly skeptic. That's his legit. Yeah, that's what he goes by now. Now, so I really don't like those particular ones. Like, I think that those kind of people definitely do not need to have kids, and they should be barred from having kids. I mean, like, you have that one sect up in, what was it? It's like Idaho or something. And
yeah, somewhere out west.
What?
I just said, yeah, somewhere out west. I think Idaho is right. Idaho or Utah or somewhere in that area.
Yeah, they have a child mortality rate that is like 10 times the amount of the entire state, minus them.
Yeah.
Like
they have their own graveyard. Is that the one that has their own graveyard and everything?
I think so.
Yeah,
It's really ridiculous. And I don't think that those people need to have kids or should be allowed to have kids. And I mean, there was even that one couple that was recently found who had, like their, what was it, like 13 children that were locked up in like these horrible conditions. And there was like a 17-year-old girl that looked 10 because of how malnourished she was.
Wow.
It was all
that's crazy.
Yeah, no. It was all because they felt that God was telling them to keep on having kids. It's like, no, fucking stop. Put the dick away. Close your legs. You don't need more kids. I think that those people are the prime examples of how religion definitely has a negative effect on society. I mean, any belief that doesn't comport with reality has the potential to be a very detrimental to society. And those are prime examples because they not only push it on their children, but they also do harm to their children, either physically, emotionally, or any other way. Especially like another more, I guess, mild version of it is like the Christian homeschoolers. They're having Christian homeschool students that would graduate like their high school, and they wouldn't be able to read. Like, they wouldn't be able to go to college. They had no real world skills.
Yeah, that's what I was. Homeschooling is kind of a touchy subject with me. I think that, and not only that, but think about all the kids are losing in learning how to socially interact with people. And I mean, you learn a lot of your social skills at school. That takes you out from under your parents' wings. You're not being. I mean, yes, you're being watched. I mean, there's teachers there to watch you, but I mean, you learn a lot of your social skills and how to deal with people from school. I mean, that's where you get most of your social interactions as a child. And I think that alone is taking away a lot from what, like you said, though, they don't learn nothing. I mean, when you're using the Bible as a textbook, that's probably, I mean, you're not going to learn all that. I mean, you might learn how to read, but I mean, your scientific skills are going to be like less than a third graders. I mean, it's pretty bad. So,
I mean, do you homeschool your kids?
No. Like I said, my girlfriend, we've been together 4 years old, we've been together 4 years. So her son, I consider him my son. I've raised him since he was 1. I mean, his dad just split, before he was even born, so he doesn't even know him. But their parents are, like I said, they're devout Pentecostals, so they want to homeschool him. But I think I've got her convinced. I'm like, look, it's not just about like, you can teach. He's your kid. You can teach him whatever you want. But I'm not going to lie to him when he gets older. If he asks me questions, I'm going to be honest to him. I mean, he deserves that much. I'm not going to step on your toes. I'm not going to tell you can't take him to church, although I do disagree with it. But like I said, I have no real say-so in the matter. But when it comes to the homeschooling, I think that I mean he's going to have a hard enough life as it is. I mean, being a Pentecostal is no easy task. They got a lot of crazy rules to follow, man. Although I do like the whole skirt thing. I dig that. I like girls in skirts, but and I like the long hair. But I'm just saying, I think he's missing out on a lot of social interaction, and I think that will. I'm saying retard in the sense that it'll retard his growth as a human being, like not being able to socially interact with other children. And I'm not saying he's retarded at all. He's a brilliant, very, very smarter than I want him to be at times. But I mean, I'm pretty sure I got to talk for talking to. You can teach them whatever you want on the weekends, but send them to a regular school and let them be responsible for teaching them. Because, you know, your mother's a bright person, your father's a bright person, but are they qualified to teach a child like high school level algebra? Probably not. You know, I mean, are they able to, you know, teach them like even high school level biology, science, English, any of that stuff? I mean, like I said, when your only textbook's the Bible, how far are you going to go on that? So that's why homeschooling is kind of a touchy subject for me. They want to make this all personal, but it is a touchy subject for me. It really is. So what do you think about people? I got another one. What do you think about people calling us racists or Islamophobes because we point out the obvious? It has nothing to do with race. First of all, Islam's not a race. And I mean, yeah, a lot of Middle Eastern people are Islamic, but that doesn't mean I'm against them because of the color of their skin. I'm against them because their ideology is fucking insane, but trying to kill us all. What do you think about? I mean, what do you think about us being put under the closet or under the umbrella of racist just because we disagree with Islam?
Well, I think that people that use the race card or whatnot, they're really convoluting two situations there, because I think that there is a possibility of somebody like referring to someone as a Muslim or something like that and being racist at the same time.
Right.
Because, like, you know, if you have someone that's an Indian and you're like, listen, I know you're all Muslim-y and stuff.
I hate that.
That's a very specific situation, but just to criticize Islam in general is not racism. Me personally, like, it's hard for me to find like Islamic videos to actually respond to, mainly because they're just really long-winded. But, it's not like I feel it's very disingenuous on their part for them to write off any criticisms that anybody has as just being racist or Islamophobic. It's not Islamophobic to criticize the religion. Now, I will say that there are some atheists out there that are very Islamophobic, that they take these criticisms of Islam and they use them in order to paint all Islamic people or all Muslims as being like part of the
ISIS or whatnot.
Yeah, the extremists and fundamentalists.
Yeah, they're not all extremists. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like people, but I think a lot of people that don't understand religion, just they use that as they don't understand our criticisms of Islam, so they use that as we're racist. Oh, you're a racist. You don't like it. You don't like.
We might point out that Islam is the most ethnically diverse religion that there is.
Oh yeah, definitely is.
It really is.
I mean, there's the darks to the dark when it comes to Muslims, and then there's Muslim Joe.
There's ginger Muslims and everything. But hey, Mole, I don't know if you're paying attention to the side chat or not, but this might be a pretty good time to start.
Oh, okay.
Start winding her down because I got to go in like 3 minutes, and I think John's got to go too.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, then we'll wrap up. I appreciate all you guys for coming. Wow, look at all I've never seen any of these people in chat. Thank you guys all for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I will start making more content than just streams. So if you'd be so kind as to subscribe, you don't necessarily have to like, but I hope you do. And I'd like to thank you for coming on again, John. Do you have something else you'd like to add?
Definitely. I hope everybody in the chat right now will subscribe to Unholy Mole. I just now found your video this morning and I subscribed, so I hope everybody else will do the same thing.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure all of my viewers are already subscribed. I mean, you're like a staple of the atheist community, pretty much. I mean, between you and Logic, I mean, you guys are the kingpins. Godless Cranium's up there too. He's pretty good. Vice Trino. I mean, but I do like a lot of the newer atheists coming out. I like how they're sticking to atheism and not mixing in social justice bullshit with it. And I like them keeping it clean, so to speak, keeping us pure as atheism or as skeptics go. We need to kind of keep that, keep it pure. We don't need to bring other bullshit into it. We got a big enough fight on our hands as it is. All right, so thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate you guys all coming. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I stream a couple times a week, and I'm gonna try to put out a couple videos a week. So I hope you enjoyed. Everybody have a nice day.